right, welcome to today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader, where we dive deep on all things leader related. One of my favorite parts of this show is bringing on fantastic guests, and today is certainly not an exception. We have a fantastic one. Very excited about the conversation we're about to have and cover as much as we can in 45 minutes or so. Today's guest is CEO of Think to Perform, a terrific organization that focuses on innovative approaches to help people and organizations perform at the highest level. He has been executive vice president of the firm that I started in business with at American Express Financial Advisors back in the day. And that's how I met him and how he started to have an impact on me 25 years ago. He coaches and works with incredibly successful business leaders, Fortune 50 business leaders, CEOs, as well as organizations all over the world. He is also the author of several very impactful books, including Moral Intelligence and the soon-to-be-released Leadership Intelligence. Let's welcome Doug Lennick. Doug, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the invitation. Looking forward to chatting with everybody.
See, I would have done the proper intro would have probably taken 15 or 20 minutes because you've accomplished so much and done so many different things. That was the abbreviated version.
That's right. That's my mom would have loved all that. So she's deceased, but anything nice you can say about me,
well,
my mom would have appreciated.
Lots of things to say, and in all honesty, I know you have led thousands and thousands of people throughout your career, either individually or as groups. I know at Ameriprise, when you were there and I was there, you were leading over, I think, 17,000 people at once, and you're now with running Think to Perform and writing books. And impacting people in all kinds of different ways. Let me just start off, just a question out of curiosity. What's the favorite part of what you do? What part of it do you enjoy the most?
Well, that's actually a really good question, John. What I enjoy the most is helping people achieve their potential. So I've always, my interest in my career, the thing that has been most interesting to me has been the people part of the business. And so what I find most interesting about what I do now is I focus on helping people develop their potential. And that's not that I didn't used to do that. It's just that that's all I do now, and so it's sort of exciting. So a lot of the things that I didn't like about being a senior executive of a global company, there was so much to like, but I don't do the things I don't like anymore.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
So that's
You've
cool.
earned that right to spend your time the way you want to spend it. Do what you enjoy the most. Well, let me ask you this. You've worked with people at all different ends of the spectrum. I mean, you have personally coached CEOs of multi-billion-dollar organizations, athletes, organizational leaders, individuals, and all the way to first people new in business and right out of school and family members. I mean, is there a similarity in all that, or is it just totally, obviously, since there's opposite ends of the spectrum, is it different types of ways that you impact people, or are there common threads there?
Well, I think there is a common thread, John, in that what we find to be true for people that are in leadership positions that result in sustainable success is they almost always, in fact, I can't think of a situation where this would not be true. They actually focus on the development of the people and the well-being of the people. And so the best leaders that I've experienced have been people that have recognized that the opportunity isn't about me, it's about you. And so great leaders really are, there was a term that was used years ago that I think is appropriate, that servant leadership. So the great leaders serve the people they lead. And so it's not about I'm in charge and you're not. It's about how can I help you be who you want to be. And the great leaders that I know are really good at that.
So let me ask you, because I know that's a question I get a lot of times, especially from leaders who may be relatively new into a role or new into leadership itself. There's that almost internal conflict of, okay, I feel like I have to be this authoritative figure and command attention or respect. At the same point, I feel I've heard this servant leadership and want to get close to my people. What does it actually look like for somebody who does it really well and effectively? And how would you answer that kind of question that a new leader might have?
Well, when I think about authoritative leadership, so I think about position power, which is what authoritative leadership really is. I think of that as like a battery, uh, and batteries are interesting. The more you use them, the more you use them up. And so when we use our authoritative leadership, what frequently happens is we wear out our capacity to lead. And it's been interesting now in today's world, um, that we are dealing with, you know, uh, the pandemic. We're dealing with the economic crisis, and what I find fascinating is that worldwide, the leaders that are having the greatest success in leading their governments and their countries, or in leading their companies, increasingly the most successful people happen to be women.
Hmm.
And I think that there's a message for all of us guys, especially as white guys. You're a white guy, I'm a white guy.
Mm.
uh, and and so what can we learn from what's going on? And the data say that it's all about compassion,
Hmm.
and it's all about empathy. And the reason women are having greater success globally, whether it's New Zealand or Germany, or you pick your place, but the reason women are doing better than men
Hmm.
is women are more predisposed to being emotionally competent.
Hmm. Is that right? So what does that do though? What is that? So tell us more about compassion and empathy and how that actually translates to better leadership.
Well, what that means is, as we look at, empathy is not about agreement, and so a lot of times there was a cover story on a publication within the last couple of weeks, and I'm not sure exactly how you're going to post when this is, but we're right now we're in May of 2020. So earlier this month, there was a publication in New Zealand talking about the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and she was referencing that her focus on compassion and empathy has often been thought about as a weakness. And I would suggest that it's not that. Empathy is not about agreeing with people. It's about understanding people. And I think that um, a lot of leaders do less well at that than they could.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and then I'm going to pick on us. I'm going to pick on white guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, white guys are. We grew up being told you don't cry, you kick ass, you take names, you got to be tough. Uh, Turns out that works less well in engaging the minds and hearts of people
Mm.
than being empathetic and actually understanding them. And compassion is really about uh, actively caring about the well-being of people.
Mm.
And if you look at our global leaders, uh, we're not doing a particularly good job of expressing um, compassion, and we're not doing a particularly good job of being empathetic.
Yeah.
And I mean specifically, your white guy got leaders.
Yeah.
So if you look at the United States, you look at Russia, you look at there's many countries where it's just not happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we have an opportunity uh, to be more empathetic, to be more compassionate,
Mm.
and and I think that's the winner.
And it seems like that's just, and you're right, because I think I was brought up in that mindset that you have to you can't show vulnerability as a leader. You know, the tough guy image, the fearless image of a leader was what earned respect and authority and followership and loyalty and the larger than life persona and all this. Is the reason that that doesn't work as well, is it because people can't identify with that type of person, or is it that they just feel like that type of person doesn't care about them?
Yes, the last thing you just said,
Mm.
it's that they don't care about them.
Mm.
So loyalty is you can't command loyalty.
Mm.
You earn it or you don't. And in my own career, I've been fortunate to have a lot of people who were responsive to my leadership style, but it wasn't about being blindly loyal to me.
Yeah.
It was about, you know, do we have something that we share
Hmm.
that's worthy of our best efforts? And if the answer to that is yes, we become loyal to the cause, not the person. So I never looked at it in my own career
Hmm.
as people being loyal to me.
Hmm.
I looked at it as we were collectively loyal to a cause.
Well, and I will speak just from firsthand experience. When I met you or learned of you back in whatever it was, 94, when I started in the business, you were that guy that was just, larger than life and leading over, tens of thousands of people at that time, leading the whole organization. But I also remember you being, the unique thing about you is, in light of that status and all your accomplishments, you came across as a really super down to earth, approachable, almost vulnerable person. But you had that great balance of, you were so internally confident and self assured that you let your guard down. You didn't feel like you felt like you were just very authentic. So just, I remember that vividly about you. And yet you were leading this enormous organization, and, very few people had a lot of access to you, but you almost felt like you knew you, even though, and you knew me, even though, I was one of 17,000 people.
Well, part of the thing I've learned about leadership is in order to manage big, you have to lead small.
Mm,
Uh,
like that.
and, and what that means is you actually need to take the time to get to know as many people as you can. And of course, I couldn't know everyone, but I knew a lot of people.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and it seems now, especially when times are very stressful, and it's fair to say everybody's dealing with a lot of stress right now. And for those that not listening to this, or maybe listening down the road, we're in the middle of COVID pandemic here and quarantine season. Stresses are at an all-time high. Anxiety is an all-time high, and that changes people. I mean, leaders feel immense pressure, so it seems natural that tendency of the leader is to do the exact opposite, to almost disconnect from people because they're so stressed and trying to focus on the business, when in reality that's the opposite of what they should be doing. Is that right?
Yes, it absolutely is. And so the whole idea is and first of all, the word leader is a great word, and the concept of leadership and how that contrasts with concept of management. And so people often ask me, are they the same thing? And I personally believe the answer is no. So I think leadership is about influencing the behavior of others. So leadership is about people. Management is about things. So I manage things. I manage the budget. I manage a particular process. So I manage stuff, but I lead people.
Hmm.
And and the game is really, the winners are the leaders, the people who can engage the best efforts. Like in my opinion, so this, and this is a very self-serving comment, but I think I could go to any organization, and I've been to several, where I can play a leadership role without understanding everything about the company. Because as the leader, the primary responsibility is to engage the best efforts of the people.
Hmm.
And so when I look at my own career, I was never, I always wanted to be, but I never was the best at anything. And I was disappointed in myself. But what I discovered that I was pretty good at was getting the best efforts out of people. So when I realized that if I could engage the human being and help them realize that I wanted them to be successful and that I wanted their best efforts, what I found produced the results that my career suggests I contributed to. It was really about engaging the best efforts of people. And that's really all about leadership. It's about influencing the behavior of the people. And that's really what it turns out to be. That's the thing I was best at. I was never the best basketball player. I was never, I always wanted to be the best at something. I was never I was a really good foosball player. I
With
was,
two, we're gonna have to play sometime.
yeah, yeah. So my partner who abandoned me ended up winning the national championship,
Wow.
but I was pretty good. And Old Black Water, by the way, was the song. If Old Black Water was playing, nobody could beat me.
It's good.
So,
Put you in the zone.
but foosball, table tennis,
Mhm.
I won my college championship in table tennis,
Did you?
and
Wow.
I thought I was really good at that. And then I joined this uh, most successful table tennis club in the country, and I got my butt kicked every day. I mean, it was so embarrassing. I so I began to realize that I'm not going to be the best at any of this stuff. So I thought, what could I be really good at? And I realized, and all of you, all of us, can get really good at helping other people be really good.
Mhm.
And so my strength became not being the best of this or the best of that, but rather being good at helping people decide to be great and then helping them understand how to do that. And that's what leadership is. And so I ended up having a pretty good career.
So your priority was helping people do the best that they can and reach their potential. The net effect of that was all the other stuff that most leaders are putting as top priority, and that's the business results and the recognition and the financial rewards and whatnot. But in reality, if you lead an organization, large or small, and you understand your people and help them do things and get better and improve, then that's ultimately everything else really takes care of itself for the most part.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at today. I'll
Yeah.
be 68 years old next month,
Wow.
and I don't
Yeah.
think I'm going to get a lot different. So this is it.
Well, you have one heck of a life, my friend. Well deserved. You've worked your butt off. And so let me just go back. I've got so many different questions floating around in my head, and I'm trying to squeeze them all in here. But um, for that leader that may be listening, because I know a lot of people that might not be their way of operating up to this point, is really focus on getting to know their people and helping them. At a time like this, where there's a lot of leaders that are trying to really lead themselves effectively, and I do want to talk about that with you as well as how people lead themselves. But when a leader may him or herself be having some struggles right now with everything that's going on, how do they what does this look like to really change their focus and really work with their people and show that they care? I mean, what do they do?
Well, you just said something, John, that's really important, which is show that they care. First of all, if you don't care, don't fake it. If you really don't care, don't pretend you care,
Yeah.
because people will know you don't really care.
Hmm.
If you really do care, then leadership might be for you.
Hmm.
You can be a manager without being a leader. So managers are appointed by people who have the authority to appoint them. So, and I look at yourself, so as I got to know you in your career, what I discovered about you is you were more of a leader than you were a manager. So you weren't about managing things or processes. You were about leading people, and people connected to you. And the reason you were having the great success you were having where were you? What part of the country were you in at the time?
All over in Boston, in Hartford, Connecticut, in Jersey, in DC.
DC. I was thinking, yeah,
Yeah.
because I used to come to your meetings,
Yeah.
but people responded to your leadership. They weren't thinking, here's John Marito. He's the best at managing this process or managing this budget. That wasn't the attraction. What attracted people to you and what I observed in working with you is that people liked the fact that you were there to help them be successful. And your results showed that. So people responded to that. And so that's what leadership is about.
Mm.
Leadership is about inspiring people to be who they could be.
Mm-hmm.
It's about bringing out their potential.
Mm-hmm.
Management is about all these things, and that's all okay and good.
Mm-hmm.
But the premium is always on leadership.
Yeah.
Always on leadership.
I remember the thing that got me, the first hook that got me into leadership, was I realized I started to get more of a kick out of helping other people and having them become successful. And I think a lot of even my own than running my own business. And I think a lot of the best leaders that I know, that was their motivation. They got into it not because of a title or recognition or moving up in authority or scope or power or money or anything like that. It was about really feeling like they could have an impact in people and influence them to do things they wouldn't have been able to do without them.
Yeah, and truthfully, that's what I've attempted. I don't know with how much success, but that's what I've attempted to do with my career.
Yeah.
And so when I was leaving American Express, and people thought, I should be a candidate to be the CEO. And I said, well, that's a very interesting thing. I just don't want to do that. So, and not that I would have been chosen. I don't think that I would have. And I think they made a great choice. So American Express chose Jim Cracchiolo to be the CEO of what's now Ameriprise. And they've done extremely well. And God bless them.
Mm-hmm.
But for me personally, I really wanted to focus my life on bringing out potential.
Mm-hmm.
So I think about living in alignment and on purpose. My own purpose is to help myself and others like yourself achieve our highest and greatest potential.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I do every day. So I'm a happy little camper. I make less money than I used to, but don't cry for me. Don't pass the hat. Well, you could if you wanted to send money, John.
I think you're doing pretty well. But that's great. That's your purpose every morning. That's what you wake up thinking, that I'm
That's what
going to
I do.
make myself
So
and other
yeah,
people better.
so every day I think I have a reason to get up.
Yeah.
I have a reason to be. And if I can help you, help your podcasters,
Mm-hmm.
the millions of followers that you have, if we can help all them,
Getting up there.
I'm good to go.
Well, and honestly, that is, and I've gone through a change, as you know, myself, in jumping into this 100%, and that's for that reason too. You've got to wake up with a sense that what you're doing is making the impact that you want, and you're in the right space, figuratively, to be able to do the things that you feel you can do, and impact as many people as you can, and that's what drives everything else.
Yeah, and I'm proud of you. You've done, it's amazing. That's a hard leap, because you're young and you've got your kids are still. How old are your kids now?
So my daughter's 14, my son is 17.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
So it's like when I was leaving American Express, I remember um, sitting on our bed in our master bedroom. We had a big bed, king bed or whatever they're called, and my son was away at college. My daughters were sitting on the bed with us, and I said, I'm going to leave American Express. I actually used the word retirement, which was the wrong word because I never really planned to retire, but I used it and confused people. And I remember one of my daughters said, she looked at my wife and says, "But Mom, we're still going to want some things." and, and, I, and I said, we thought about that. I said, we're going to be good. You're going to still get some things. So my kids are now still getting things.
Yeah, they're
They
doing
just
great.
get bigger things than they used to get.
Yeah, well, you got a lot of. They're
and,
doing
and,
terrific,
and the
right?
gifts come more in envelopes with a check as opposed to in boxes.
So I want to hit on your book coming out. I know we don't have that much time, but tell us about leadership intelligence. What's that about, and what do we expect to get from it?
Well, I'm writing that book with one of my colleagues, Chuck Walkendorfer, and this will be his first foray into being an author. This will be my seventh book, uh, and I'm happy to say and humbled to say that the books that I've written, sometimes by myself, sometimes with other authors, have been published around the world. So I think we're in 13 languages now,
Wow.
and so I feel really good about that. But the concept of leadership intelligence, and this is my current thinking. So this is a breakthrough thing here, right on your podcast. Is I don't know that this is the way it's going to end up, but here's my current thinking. My current thinking is the subtitle is from 9/11 to COVID-19 and all things in between. And so,
That's great.
uh, yeah, so when I think about leadership, we differentiate, as we've been doing here, John, the notion of leadership and management, and we're going to do that in the book. Um, but the people that I've interviewed and people that will be featured range from, so go back to 9/11, which most of your podcast participants will remember,
Mhm.
September 11th, 2001. Um, one of one of our interviews is Ken Chenault. Ken Chenault was the CEO of American Express at the time, and Ken is just one of the most wonderful people, and one of the great leaders that I've come to know over time. But he called me, so when 9/11 happened, uh, he called me and wanted to spend some time with me on September 12th, which we did. And we talked about the implications of all of this, and the role that emotions would play on the workforce of the company. So American Express, which sustained significant collateral damage, so it was one of the towers it wasn't one of the towers that went down, but it was right next door, and it sustained collateral damage. And there were, and I think this number is right, there were 11 American Express employees who died in the towers crashing.
Mm.
And of course, those of us who remember this, we remember it was a Tuesday. The Thursday before that Tuesday, I was on the 60th floor of one of the towers doing um, leadership development for American Express global leaders. And so, and I still had my card. And I remember thinking about the luck of the draw.
Right.
So I was there on a Thursday. The following Tuesday,
Wow.
this happens.
Makes you realize you're meant to be here and you've got a purpose.
Well, it makes you realize it's just luck.
Yeah.
One way or the other. Good luck, bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
But, I lived, and many of the, and I was not there, but many of my colleagues, that I knew, talked to me about what was happening, and they watched the plane come in.
Wow.
And so you think, 9/11.
Wow. That's just unbelievable.
And then bring it to today.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are.
Yeah.
And the deal is, it's about the leader.
Mm-hmm.
It's always about the leader. So it was then, it is now, and it has been ever since in between. But I think we've gotten confused, and so we don't do as well as we could at helping people access best efforts.
Well, in times like in that 19-20 year span of time, I mean 9/11 to now, there's so many different extreme periods like that, events where people need to be brought together, right? I mean,
Yes,
that's what a leader has to do. And when you're
yes,
feeling in a desperate situation in times like that where you're confused and anxious and scared, the feeling of being isolated or alone is the exact opposite. People need to feel a sense of connection, and that's what
yes.
a leader needs to do.
Well, and that's what leaders do.
Mm.
And so I think we need more of that now, not less. And so, relative to leadership intelligence, the message we are trying to deliver, and, my collaborative author, Kathy Jordan, who has supported me and or my co-authors in multiple books. We had this big meeting last week, and we were, she was kind of freaked out about how to think about integrity, because she said we're in a world where people get to make up their own integrity. I said, no, they don't. I said, the truth is the truth. The truth doesn't change. You know, so people can do their own, you can say whatever you want. You can say, we're gonna, you know, make up facts. We're going to, you know, have alternative facts. I love that phrase. I thought that was one of the great things that, one of the great terms that was introduced to the world by Kellyanne, what's her name? Kellyanne Conway.
Yeah, Conway. Yep.
You know, when she said, we're going to talk about alternative facts, so we don't have to have real facts. We just have alternative facts. I thought, well, that's really cool. You know, because you've heard me say over the years, John, that, you know, all of us went to various colleges. One of the colleges that all of us spent a little bit of time at was MSU, making stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
And so this concept of making stuff up has become sort of a new thing. It doesn't change the truth, though.
Right.
So 2 + 2 is still 4, even if you tell me it's 5. So I don't care how often you tell me 2 + 2 is 5.
Mm-hmm.
I will always know.
Yeah. Right.
That 2 + 2 is 4.
You
Now,
know,
some people will say, okay, if John tells me it's 5, it must be 5.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And
But it breaks
so,
down trust and loyalty, and then the whole concept of leadership is non-existent.
yeah.
Point. Yeah. Well, I know we're at the end of our time here. So what
Excuse
would
me.
be, bless you, what would be,
You
you've
see,
got,
I sneaked into my sleeve too, just the way you're
I
supposed to do.
saw you. That's perfect form
Yes,
too.
yeah.
You got
You
the
know,
elbow up, and yeah, so you don't strain anything.
modeling.
Perfect form.
Yeah, thank
So,
you.
so what would you leave people with? I mean, now you've got people that obviously they're, you know, mentally or emotionally, they may not be the best version of themselves, and they're having a tough time right now in leading themselves. What might be, you know, words of wisdom coming from the guy who wrote the book on it?
Well, and thank you. I would say this, John, that each of us needs to genuinely reflect on where we personally are at, and what biases that we bring to the table, and try to determine, relative to the big picture and what we hope happens, what are some of the things that we individually need to do behaviorally in order to really be who we would ideally like to be more often. Because my guess is 100% of the people participating in this podcast at an ideal level are wonderful. We're all wonderful. I'm wonderful. Ideally, I'm wonderful. Really, not so much. My wife will attest to that. So I fall short of my ideal self. So I think each of us needs to challenge ourselves to say, ideally, what kind of person do we want to be? What kind of contribution do we want to make? And I actually, this is my own opinion. Everybody gets to have their own, obviously, but I think we need to be, we have to learn to collaborate, compromise, and get along with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't just blast you because you don't agree with me. Or I shouldn't. I can, obviously, and we're doing a lot of that now.
Mhm.
I just don't think that's the right thing. I think we've got to learn how to problem solve together, even though we might disagree on some things.
Right. And it comes back to your first point about empathy and compassion. That's
Yeah, actually understand where somebody else. So empathy doesn't mean agreement.
mm-hmm.
It just means understanding. I can understand you without agreeing with you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're willing to understand me, we don't have to agree, but at least we can understand each other.
Mm-hmm.
And years ago, I had the great benefit of getting to know Stephen Covey before, and he passed away a couple of years ago. But this whole notion of understanding differences and realizing that there are places of centricity. So Covey and I were at the State of the World Forum a number of years ago, and he had this talking stick that he used, and we had, you know, representatives from 100 nations and tribes from around the world that were in this meeting in San Francisco. And the whole idea was each person had a point of view, and the idea was to try to listen to understand. And so if you think of Covey's 7 habits, think first to understand. I don't think we do that really well now. I think we are currently um, so locked into trying to get our own point of view out there
Yeah. Convince
that
others of our
we're
own
not
perspective.
interested in understanding others
Yeah.
and the points of view of others. And so what I got out of my relationship with Covey, and I knew him for 20 years, is actually seeking to understand rather than to be understood
Mm.
was much more powerful. And I'm hopeful that we can do that now.
Mm. Powerful words. Harder to do than to say, but it's critical. Yeah. That's very, very valuable. Wow, my friend, this has been incredible. I appreciate this. I could ask question after question after question. So I'm hoping at some point you come back and visit again down the road when I
Yeah,
do have a million followers.
it looks like you're in like a big studio. I'm just in my office. So
This is my makeshift studio. This is this is my back wall converted to a sound studio. So
well,
my dining
that
room
all
converted
works.
to a sound studio.
Anything else I can do, John?
My pleasure. How can people get a hold of you if they want to learn more about you or your company or your book?
Well, I'm Doug Lennick, and so you can Google me.
Hmm.
So the wonderful thing about Doug Lennick is when you Google Doug Lennick, I'm the only person that comes up. So like if you Google Steve Nelson, there'll be 800 million of you. But
Wow.
if you Google Doug Lennick, there's just one. And
Wow.
so you can Google me. You can also go to our website, Think to Perform. So the word think, the number 2, the word perform.com. You can find me there. Uh, but and then if you want, and I'm never hesitant to do this. So I get lots of texts and emails, but I'll give you my cell phone number. So you can text me, you can call me, um, and it's 612-747-0004.
Wow, that is a man putting himself out there. That's a nice gesture. Well, I knew there was only one and only one Doug Lennick, and now Google has confirmed it. So that's great to know.
Yeah, check it out. Check it out. If you check Doug Lennick, if there's anybody else, let me know.
Yeah,
If
we'll
there's
take care
another
of
Doug
it.
Lennick that shows up, let me know who that is.
Awesome. All right. Well, Doug, thank you for joining us. It has been eye-opening, enlightening, insightful. And thank you all for joining us today on today's episode of Tomorrow's Leader. If you enjoyed today, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, add some comments, share with your friends. Be sure not to miss this and future episodes. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Doug. Have a good one.
Thank you.